Well, I think at this point it's very clear, hearing from Mark Zuckerberg, that's not what the company's thinking. The board has also come out in support of Sandberg and Zuckerberg. I think you have to remember that in addition to leading the policy and comms side of the business, Sheryl Sandberg is the entire business for Facebook, right? She leads all revenue. She leads all partnerships. And so I think at this point, the damage is kind of done. Facebook doesn't need to inflict a little bit more damage by removing its second most important executive at a crucial time.
John, what say you on this topic, especially given this New York Times report, which really didn't paint either one of them, Sandberg or Zuckerberg, in a very positive light, to say the least?
Well, I think misjudgments were made, but I think it would be a terrible mistake for the board of Facebook to fire Sheryl Sandberg. The way I would look at it is there's some extremely experienced, wise people on the Facebook board. I mean, you've got Erskine Bowles, Ken Chenault. I mean, these people have been around a long time. They have a lot of wisdom. I think that the board probably needs to know more about what's going on. But to fire Sheryl Sandberg would be, I think, a terrible mistake. She understands the business. She came from Google, where she was successful. She's been incredibly successful. She's been looked up as one of the most competent executives in the world. I can't imagine a worse decision than to fire Sheryl Sandberg.
Kurt, you mentioned that Sandberg oversees the entire business side of the company, right? So advertising, everything that you would basically see go to the bottom line. And the premise seems to be, well, why would you fire her? Because then those things would suffer, and they're not already suffering. So are they not already suffering? Are we not actually seeing any business impact from all of these issues that have been in the news for well over a year now?
Well, we haven't seen many advertisers come out and take any kind of public stand and say, hey, we're not going to do business with Facebook because of these kinds of things. And unless we see that over the next week or so, I don't envision that this New York Times story is going to change that. What we have seen is that some users have started to use Facebook less, and that Facebook is kind of reaching saturation in some of these markets like the United States, like in Europe. And so that is impacting the business, in my opinion, more than Facebook stumbles or relationships with advertisers.
John, for a number of moments in the last year, it feels like Facebook is fairly reactive to crises rather than being proactive to prevent them. And today, I guess, is another example in response, and only in response to a big attack article. Mark Zuckerberg, as we just heard there, announcing this independent body. Do you think now regulators have to take that out of their hand and prevent them from being able to delay and be reactive and just to be proactive themselves, the regulators, and put these bodies in place themselves?
Well, I think that Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg need to get ahead of the problem, and they're in a defensive position of reacting. I think there's some major trends that are in motion that are going to be huge in terms of Facebook's future. One is the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation that went into effect in May of this year, that talks about privacy principles and people's control over their data, the transparency of how people's data will be used. This is only going to become more important. It isn't just something about the EU. The other thing is there are a lot of very high-profile, respected CEOs who are speaking out. Mark Benioff is an example, saying, wait a minute, I think that people should have more rights over their own data. And so these are fundamental issues that will be foundational to whatever the business model that Facebook is going to have over the next several years, which is, again, why taking Sheryl Sandberg out of the company would be a terrible mistake at this time. No one understands it better. Yes, they made some errors in judgment. They have wise people on the board that can help them. Whether this particular independent body is strategic or not, I honestly don't know. But more importantly is to follow the importance of the GDPR and more and more, I guess, consensus building up that consumers should have more rights over their own data and own their data and be able to do more things. Those are foundational to the kind of business models that may have to be reimagined in Facebook.